With the release of Elena, Sagat, and now c.viper, we're now seeing a shift in what Capcom wants to do with the game. Initially, they started out with low forward or crouching medium kick drive rush, or fireball into drive rush. We've been using these options for 2 years now, and their year coming around. We don't really want to repeat the same things over and over again, so Capcom decided to change things up. However, are these changes really worth it, or is fireball drive rush and crouching medium kick drive rush too strong? In this video, I'm going to be going over the philosophy that they have decided to take with these new characters and whether it fits in this meta of drive rushing through crouching medium kick or drive rushing through fireball. With that being said, let's get into it. So let's talk about it. As of right now, I'm going to count Elena in this group because she counts as the first character to start having this shift in how to handle situations. So what they wanted to do was to remove low forward drive rush, right? Now granted, they didn't fully take it away from her, but they effectively did so. So if you're not aware, Elena has a target combo for a crouching medium kick, right? This crouching medium kick by itself cannot be drive rushed. However, if you do the target combo, then you can drive rush. Some might be saying, oh, then it's just like Terry's and you can drive rush afterwards. The problem is that if the opponent happens to be crouching, as we know, number one, you'll whiff, and number two, you won't even get the drive rush on the cancel. So effectively, they've taken this option away because now you have to confirm whether or not they're standing. Now you can try and do things like this where you do crouching light kick or crouching light punch into it, where you can get options afterwards, but it's not the same as going for drive rush, right? Now, as standard for a lot of the characters that don't have low forward drive rush, they have drive rush low forward. Fun times. Now with that said, drive rush low forward is a fairly viable option, and this is one of the things that I wanted to get into, is that when it comes to her options, they want to give the maximum of damage or maximum amount of value off of drive rush low forward, unlike some of the other more vanilla characters where if you do drive rush low forward, you're probably going to do drive rush low forward drive rush, right? Or alternatively, they scale a lot harder than when it comes to these newer characters. So let's talk about the fact that when it comes to not having low forward drive rush, they gave them something instead. So instead of giving them the option of trying to low forward drive rush, they gave something in place of it. So something to kind of, I call it, skip the neutral a little bit easier, right? Now granted, each character is going to have it on a different scale. And with that being said, the difference is for Elena, the fact that she can roll, right? Roll naturally goes under fireball. As finicky as it is, it does in fact go under fireball, on top of which you can space yourself out from the opponent, especially if they want to try and press something immediately afterwards. So then you can put yourself in a situation where it's a spacing trap after pressing it, right? She also has access to a slide in order to get that little long range boost in order to get into the proper spacing that she wants to be in, right? So in order to kind of circumvent the fact that you don't have low forward drive rush, they gave her options like roll. Now granted, while roll has its uses, I'm also going to talk about the fact that each one of these options has a very significant drawback, and the drawback is very simple, right? You'll notice that every single one of these loses to DI, right? You'll find Tiger Knee. Well, we'll get into it, all of that a little bit later, but all of these options that allow you to skip neutral will also completely implode in the face of DI. And this is very consistent. This is not even just for these characters. This can also go towards characters like Terry as well with Burn Knuckle, right? A lot of these neutral skip options, they don't want you just doing it all willy-nilly, so they kind of make them a little bit more committal, especially when dealing with DI. So next character up is Sagat. Let's talk about Sagat now. It's the same value where we're talking about how they have different options. Naturally, They didn't want him to be just like a straight fireball monster this time around, so they changed him to be a little bit more of a strike throw monster, have a lot of plus on block moves, right? So the thing about Sagat, like the other characters in this category, no low forward drive rush because they're trying to smoke that option, right? Unfortunate as it may be. However, if you are able to get it, you can get low forward into an option like this, right? By using low forward drive rush here, then you can go for a drive rush into forward medium kick and then get your party started from there. You can make yourself a lot more scary and make your opponent guess a lot more. One thing to note is that all these characters, notice how they all have overheads, so then you can kind of make them guess between drive rush low and drive rush overhead, right? That's a lot of where the guessing game kind of comes from. On top of which, they've given them all plus on block buttons in order to compensate for this. A lot of what you'll find about these newer characters is that they're looking for ways in order to compensate the fact that they don't have this option. And once again, like I was saying, when it comes to an option like Tiger Knee, you get blown up, right? Now granted, there are situations where you can make it plus, right? And then by making it plus, you can go for your buttons again, and if they try to press, they get blown up for it, right? It's a great way to keep your opponent in check. However, number one, if your opponent is able to DP it, they can DP it as well, but most people will end up either trying to parry it, in which they can potentially get blown up, or just trying to DI depending on the range, right? Every time they'll just try and DI the situation instead. When it comes to Sagat's unique abilities, you obviously have very long normals, and then you have very oppressive strings. This kind of makes him unique. It makes him a little bit more of a better striker than most characters, just because they don't want you doing the same thing over and over again. Now, one thing that we thought was going to happen was that they're going to just remove throw loops in general, because both Elena and Sagat don't have throw loops. But as we can see in our next example, that is not necessarily the case. But nonetheless, that doesn't mean Sagat is completely not viable, but it does make him a little bit harder of a choice, just because when there are characters that can just low forward drive rush at you or fireball drive rush, it makes it a harder decision to decide to main him. Lastly, when it comes to lovely c.viper, a lot of the decisions that were made for this character were honestly built along this same philosophy, the fact that they don't want these characters to have low forward drive rush, right? However, one thing that we did learn from this is that they are not afraid to keep throw loops in the game, right? She has quite a few options out of this, and it makes her quite scary when it's in the corner because she has this option. So while she does not have low forward drive rush, because she has access to non-meter related throw loops, it makes her a little bit stronger than the rest of the other two characters, at least, right? Now with that said, once again, what are her effort moves, right? What options does she have? She has the option to just simply just go for this in neutral, right? And then make you guess. On top of which, she can use this to change her jump angle so that you whiff your DP or whiff your anti-air, and then she can punish you with a crouching heavy punch and go from there, right? The same idea though, you can get this going, right? You can go the exact same way and then get that whole gameplay started. Forgive me, my TKs is not good. My TKs here are not good. But you can get that whole party started off of low forward, drive rush low forward or drive rush overhead, right? And then based on the options that you choose, you get obviously a different amount of reward. But that's generally how they're going about patching this game, or making this game a little bit less low forward drive rush heavy. Does this work? Does it make it feel a little bit better to play? It does, because it makes the characters feel a little bit more unique. However, the offset of that is that when you're trying to play a character like, let's say, c.viper, right? You're trying to do all the cancels, you're trying to do all this stuff, and then your opponent just low forward and then do a heavy kick into standing medium, standing heavy punch, then heavy kick into standing heavy punch. You know what I mean? And then they just implode your health while you're here doing cancels and then all it is, right? You're trying to do all these cancels and trying to do it smooth and all this and that, but they're just pressing 2 buttons and getting the same amount. It makes it feel a little bit less rewarding, admittedly, but it's a right step in the right direction. I think we do need to up the character strength of these characters just so that they're able to compete at a higher level, especially when it comes to characters like Bison or characters like Mai, where they're just doing this, or they're hitting Steady Heavy Punch, or they're hitting EX Fan, right? A lot of these options can be very obnoxious. With that being said, what do you think about these new Season 3 characters and Elena? And do you think they're headed in the right direction? That being said, let me know.